was young, as a non-Muslim, I trick-or-treated.
Yeah.
And we were living in a big housing project, so we had thousands of kids walking around,
Yeah.
with masks on and whatnot. But actually, unfortunately, because of the rise of Satanism in America, this time has become extremely dangerous. And people will tell you today, don't send your children out on trick-or-treating, because there's perverts and there's murderers and Satanists who actually capture the children, kidnap them during that time. Also, some of the people would put filthy things in the bag. I mean, if your child is going to beg, people for candy, you better be sure what that candy is. And so it's a dangerous thing. I mean, disease can be passed on. So many dangers for children that most people who have sense won't send their children out trick-or-treating. So Muslims who are supposed to be more organized, should really avoid this, because we have no relationship with that event at all. But for a person who's not a Muslim, what I say is, think about it. Don't follow the hype. Don't be pushed along to do things, right, without using your intelligence. This is so important today because, even very dangerous drugs are given names like, designer names, and, things which are really dangerous are made to seem fair-seeming and seem innocent. So we have to question what is behind things. And so therefore, I would say for Muslims and people of consciousness, don't be involved in trick-or-treating at all. Close your door, right, and don't do it. I mean, that's unfortunate, because if you don't treat, they're going to trick you. And we used to throw eggs on the door, right? So you might get in trouble. But after a while, I think most of the trick-or-treaters, they can see a door, they know if somebody's not into it, and they just leave it alone.
That's a perfect time to get robbed also. You got the mask on.
That's right.
Open the door, give them up.
That's right.
Not the candy, but the money.
That's right.
So be safe.
That's right.
Yeah. Tell us now, look, I don't see my family all year, and it's the season to be jolly. We're getting together. Family time. What's the problem here?
Well, this is a great crisis for those who have accepted Islam. Because we are supposed to keep relations with our families. It is part of the sunnah not to break off with your mother or your father, and to keep your relations. And so therefore, we need to be balanced. Some people would go to extremes and they have nothing to do with their families and cut them off. That's not the Islamic way. But at the same time, the other extreme is to just go there and sit up there when they're eating ham and they're eating things that are not permissible, and to sit there and to be involved in it. So really, it is permissible to visit families. There's nothing wrong with showing respect, to your family. But Muslims need to be very clear with their parents that they don't eat pork, they don't drink alcohol, they need halal food, and if the family gets together on an occasion like that, for most people there's no religious part of it, it's a social thing. So if they get together for social reasons, you can do that, but we just have to make sure that it's halal, that the food is halal, and of course no drinking of alcohol. In some cultures you have a pudding or a cake that's got wine inside of it. You got to watch out for that as well. Fruit cake or whatever it is. It depends on the culture. So, it's like a balance. It's a way of showing respect to your family, but not following their traditions. And so I would recommend that we still keep relations with the family. In terms of presents, you can receive presents. There's nothing wrong with that. But the giving of the presents, what we tried to institute, is that we would not give presents on Christmas, but when Eid Day comes, then we would give our families presents to show them that, yes, we are giving you, we do love you, we're giving you presents, but we're not necessarily following this tradition, because this is not Islamic, and it's not even Jesus, from the followers of Jesus, peace be upon him.
None of them ever commemorated or celebrated any of these holidays.
None of these holidays. These are nature-based holidays. Has nothing to do with the prophets. So we have to make it clear, but you see, for a lot of the people in the older generation, it's tough to distinguish this, because this is a cultural thing now. And it's become a North American, Western way of celebration and family and whatnot. So we have to be sensitive to people's feelings, and to let them know that we still do love them and we care about them, but we're not going to follow traditions which lead us into polytheism or eating food which is not permissible in Islam.
So before we come to an end, and just a few more points, how do we bring it home as far as now we want to do things the correct way? So what advice do you have for those people who are just going with the flow, just letting their desires dictate their life? Why is this something so important that we mention a lot of the, is it safe to say, pagan roots from some of these holidays, and why it's important to really investigate like you did instead of just blindly following along?
Well, it's important for people today that we have a balance, and that we realize that Islam is a gift. That in this world of confusion today, the last Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he did not come to start a new religion, but he came to bring the final testament. He gave the final version of the Quran, which actually filled in those parts that were missing from the message and corrected aspects of the message that had been lost over time. And so we believe that in the teachings of Jesus, what is left, there is truth in there. In the teachings of Moses, there is truth. But the truth has been polluted or mixed up with paganism and with nature worship. And so Islam has given you a pure, straightforward way of approaching religion and the straight monotheism. And so we need to really be thankful for this and to keep ourselves out of the negative practices which have destroyed the messages of many of the prophets who came in the past.
What advice do you have for that person who sees the contradictions, he sees the flaws, he sees that, you know what, the majority of these religions, they have man's interpolation in them. They have man's fingerprint on it. And you know what? But they're just going with the customs now. They see, when they watch the show, they've met some Muslims possibly and see, you know what, it makes sense. This call to worship the Creator alone, to submit to Him alone, to do what He wants you to do, and then there's nothing less than paradise. That's a simple, rational thing.
That's right, and we should realize that this religion of the one God, monotheism, this is something which was practiced by all nations. And the Quran itself says, we have sent verily a messenger to every nation that they should worship one God and stay away from false deities. And so in China, in India, in Europe, Africa, the Americas, Middle East, every nation, every tribe has received a warner, a messenger. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is only the seal or the finality of all of these prophets. So in everybody's culture there is some good. There is monotheism. There is purity. And nobody should be disrespected. But we have to realize that there are negative forces. There are forces of the devil. There are forces of paganism which seek to defy the Creator and take people on a course that would lead them ultimately to hellfire. And so it is our prayer that our friends and those who are watching our program and our families, could all be saved from the fire of hell in the next life, and that we could all live in this life in peace and security and find the best in this world and the hereafter.
A couple more points. Everything sounds good. It sounds like it's something that it's practical, it's rational, and there's evidence behind what we're saying. All the people have to do is to dig a little bit. But there's some stigma attached to Islam. People seen some things blowing up, and they're associated with Muslims. They think that Islam oppresses the woman. They think Allah is some strange moon god. What do you have to say in general about this to help remove some of this garbage that has been put out there?
Well, what I've found is that the Islam itself, like other ways of life, is not necessarily the same as those who claim to be. In other words, in Christianity itself, there are extremists.
Yes.
In Judaism, there are extremists. In Hinduism, there are extremists. Similarly, there are those people who have Muslim names, but they're not actually practicing Islam. And so it's important for people today, because today, since we have technology, we are able to communicate, we have Googles, we have so many ways of bringing information in. We need to go to the essence, what we call in history, primary sources. Go back, as we say, take it from the horse's mouth. You want to find out what something is really about? Go to the source and find out what it is. Then you can judge the followers. Then you can judge an event and say, is this a Christian event? Is this a Muslim event? Is this a Jewish event? Islam is no different than the other ways of life. And so that is important today for everybody to have that open-mindedness when they're dealing with each other. And we don't say that everybody has to be a Muslim. Everybody has a choice. The Quran says there's no compulsion in religion. Truth stands clear from falsehood. And so people have the right to choose what they want. But it's important